drivers are off, looking to heat up those tires here. Once again, guys, the grid for today. Silver Arrow in the Haas on pole with Aleph in the Renault, our current championship leader, I do believe, in second. Nusor in third in that Williams, with Pixel in fourth in the Mercedes. Olipub fifth with the Toro Rosso. Lucario in sixth in the Red Bull. Ozil seventh in that Racing Point. Jeb in eighth in the McLaren. Kroga ninth in the Ferrari. Kaio in 10th in the other Racing Point. And Don Lucio rounding off the grid at the back in 11th in the Alfa Romeo. So we are off to the warm-up lap here. Nothing too exciting going on here, as there's a bit of a crash there from Ozil, who was, of course, having steam issues just a moment ago. Hopefully we'll see him back in here before the end of the formation lap. If not, there will not be a restart in this race. Making sure that all these drivers are on the correct tire compound. And I'm not too sure what will be done about that, but there are a couple of different drivers here starting on the different compounds than what they qualified in. I'm not sure if there's a league restriction on that, but I know that in some of the leagues that I race in, if there is a restart for whatever reason, you are required to start in the tire compound that you qualified in. Couple of different choices here we can see on the grid, as Silver Arrow is starting on his correct tires with the soft compound in pole position as we get ready to go here in Monaco. Waiting for the lights to come on. Could see a couple of lobby bugs here, but looks like we got 5 lights on. It's lights out and away we go here in Monaco. Silver Arrow in the lead of the race on pole position, of course. The Renault of Aleph looking to capture a place from him here in the opening lap. That would be huge, of course, as we see these drivers come up through the first sector into that fast hanging left corner. Coming down now into what I consider one of the most difficult sections of the circuit, the teardrop hairpin. Very slow coming down through here. We'll be watching all these drivers. A little bit of contact there between the two Racing Points. Not too sure if that was AI induced or not. But very good racing here so far. Not too dirty from any of these drivers. Everybody trying to keep things clean here on the opening lap, as Silver Arrow still is leading this race, having started on pole position. We'll get some intervals here as these drivers cross the line into the first official lap of the race, where we'll, of course, start to see some fast laps come through. Silver Arrow, of course, in first, setting the opening fastest lap of 1:17.089. As we get some intervals now, it's the Williams of Nusor looking to capture second position here away from that Renault driver of a left, coming through up into sector 1 here. He's very tight on the rear of that Renault. Don Lucio currently 5.1 seconds behind 7th position. We've seen a pit stop here from Kroga already. And Olipub in the Toro Rosso, as Olipub switching over to soft compound tires. Kroga on the hard compound tire now. So they'll fall back into position in the 10th and 11th respectively. Pixel very tight on the rear of the Williams now. Could he be looking to make a move through sector 2 here? We'll go on board with him for a moment, as we can see a little bit of action from the 3rd position and 2nd position drivers ahead of him. The Williams driver keeping things very tight on that Renault, putting a lot of pressure on him as we come through this difficult right-hander. Moving through now into lap 3. Silver Arrow up to a 2-second gap in the lead of this race, setting a 1:13.647 as the fastest lap thus far. DRS now enabled for these drivers, as race control has just informed us. Looking for some tight gaps here on the grid. Looks like everybody's pretty well spaced out for the time being. It is a 39-lap race, guys. It is not a short race. It's a long race. Drivers need to be patient. work on their tire wear, work on their fuel management here in Monaco. This circuit is very unforgiving of mistakes, so these drivers head down, focusing on what's going on in front of them and, of course, behind them. Nusor still running in third there in the Williams, keeping a very tight grip on the Renault, with Silver Arrow pulling away in the race lead at the moment as he comes down through Sector 3. Very nice shot there from Codemasters as these three cars very, very close, second, third, and fourth. Lucario not quite up to speed yet with these guys as he's currently running 2.2 behind in fifth. Jeb up into sixth place in that McLaren. Of course, Olipub and Kroga, having had to pit already, will be looking to have a late surge back into the points. Not too much action happening with the race leader right now. We are currently following along the race of the second, third, and fourth position drivers. Always looking for those little bits of contact with both the circuit and, of course, other drivers. Monaco, a very tight circuit, like we mentioned earlier. Coming out of the tunnel now. That being one of the most difficult turns in the circuit right there. A lot of drivers end up turning in a little bit too early, catching out their back left rear tire. So far, so clean here in Monaco, though, as there are still all 11 drivers on the grid, albeit a couple of them having to pit, but I'd rather see them pit than out of the race, of course. As we move here now up into the fifth lap, Silver Arrow consistently setting fastest lap times here with a 1:13.466 being the latest. Nusor very, very close throughout the majority of this race thus far on the rear of that Renault. He is on him like glue. He's just stuck to that Renault. As we come down now through into the teardrop hairpin. Very, very tight turn here for these drivers, keeping things nice and neat and tidy through that turn. Don't want to go in too hard or you may hit the rear of the driver in front of you. Coming through the tunnel now. Olipub in that Toro Rosso has made up a few positions as Kaio in that Racing Point has launched himself into the pits, switching over to that hard compound tire. Olipub currently half a second behind the seventh place runner of Don Lucio. Aleph has taken a 3-second time penalty after multiple warnings. That is definitely going to impact his race. We'll see if the pit crew holds him in the pits to serve that penalty or not. Not too sure if Nusor is aware of the penalty as they don't get race updates. We'll see if Jeff comes over the radio at some point in the race to give him some very rare, useful information from Jeff, the race engineer for all of these drivers. Nusor still half a second behind the rear of this Renault. It's very, very tight. Olipub now in the Toro Rosso. Very, very tight to the rear of Don Lucio. Ooh, looks like he was trying to make a move there. Definitely going to jump on board here with these guys as we come through the first sector. Olipub looking very, very racy in that beautiful Toro Rosso. But he has to deal with the Don in the Alpha. Pixel taking a 3-second time penalty after multiple warnings here in Monaco. Something to keep in mind for these drivers is the corner cutting stringency is on strict as we see an overtake down the inside coming into the tunnel here from Olipub. He's now up ahead of Don Lucio coming out of the tunnel now. Will we see a move or a switchback? Olipub taking a massive gap there. Lucio not able to pull out of that turn. He's going to have to cut that corner. Not too sure if he received a warning or not for that, but we will see later on in the race, of course, if he receives any more. He may take a penalty as he cuts the corner there as well. Not too sure what's going on for the Alfa Romeo driver. He could quite possibly have some damage. And he most definitely does as he dives into the pits now. Don Lucio falling back into 8th. Still, of course, at the front of the grid, we have this battle between the Renault, Williams, and Mercedes drivers. They're fighting for third position and second position right now. Of course, the Renault driver, having started in second position, he's definitely fallen behind Silver Arrow quite a bit here, as Silver Arrow up into a 4.3 second lead in that Haas. He's got to be happy with that. Of course, Monaco, a very important Grand Prix here to have those gaps around in case any accidents should happen. Very beautiful shots here from the Codemasters camera views as the Renault, Williams, and Mercedes drivers come through Sector 3 now, looking to finish their 7th lap of the campaign. Very neat and tidy from these 3 drivers for the whole of this race so far. We are now 7 laps in, moving here onto the 8th lap of the race. If you're just tuning in, we are watching the ARL Amateur Racing League Round 7 Monaco Grand Prix. Hopefully you guys are enjoying what I'm seeing here, because this is fantastic racing thus far. Albeit not too many overtakes, but we're seeing some clean racing as there's a bit of a tap there from the Williams driver on the rear of that Alfa Romeo. We'll see if he's got any damage in just a moment. Doesn't look like he does. Very fortunate for the Williams driver, as he has been stuck to the rear of that racing point, or the Renault, for the majority of this race so far. The Mercedes just cruising along in the back, waiting for one of these drivers to make a mistake. We'll see if that happens. He's currently a 2nd and 3/10 behind. Doesn't look like he has any wing damage on that car either. These guys keeping their wings fairly clean thus far. Take a look at the overall gap to leader right now. The current gap to leader is a full minute and 2 seconds and 2/10 from Don Lucio at the back of the grid to Silver Arrow in the front, as we see a bit of a position switch there. The Williams trying to make a move on that Renault, but the Renault quickly retakes that 2nd position. So far, 4 drivers have opted to pit in this race so far. Olipub, Kroga, Kaio, and Lucio coming down into the teardrop hairpin now. Very, very, very tight between the Williams and the Renault. The Mercedes almost smacking the rear of that Williams. As you can see, the effect of qualifying here, very, very important, as the top 4 drivers have not switched positions until we see a bit of an overtake there from the Williams coming out of the tunnel. It is the Williams up into 2nd now, and the Mercedes very close on his rear, coming through into Sector 3 now. Aleph in the Renault not going to be happy about that, as he had issues on that section coming out of the tunnel. He's dropped back into 4th now. Very, very tight racing from these 3 all race long so far. Hopefully they can keep it up. It's very exciting action here as Pixel now dropping behind to almost a 2nd behind the rear of that Williams. The Williams going to be very happy in 2nd position now, as he tries to take up and move up on the race leader of Silver Arrow, currently 6 seconds ahead. Pixel was just waiting in behind these drivers in 4th position for something to happen, some kind of move to be made, and of course his patience paid off. Now he is up into the podium positions as Kaio takes a 3-second time penalty in that racing point for multiple warnings. A lot of penalties we've seen so far here in the first phase of the race. Not too sure what's going to happen for these drivers once they get into the pits with those time penalties, whether or not the pits are going to hold them up with stop and go, or if they're going to let these times fold through into the end of the race to affect their last minute time settings. Pixel taking a 3-second time penalty after multiple warnings in that Mercedes. Silver Arrow in the lead of this race, currently up 5 seconds. It looks like the Williams was just itching to get past that Renault here in Monaco, because he has already, inside of 1 lap, taken a 2nd out of our race leader in that Williams. Pixel running in 3rd. The Renault driver looks like he might have taken some damage here, as he's going into the pits for the medium compound tires. No wing change from him, no damage. It's going to be a very fast pit for the Renault, as he's looking to come out here in a fighting position. Looks like he may exit in 5th. Lucario in the Red Bull now up into 4th after the pit of the Renault driver. And Aleph is successfully out of the pits into 5th here on the medium compound tire, looking for an undercut on the drivers ahead of him. Pixel has definitely fallen off here on the rear of the Williams in front of him. Newsor coming through the tunnel now. And Silver Arrow, having just left the tunnel, coming through that first major turn out of the tunnel there, moving up into Sector 3 now. Take a quick look at the pit stops. So far, 5 out of the 11 drivers here have pitted. Of the most significant pit stops thus far being the one of Aleph in that Renault, as we see Don Lucio jump into the pits now for his 2nd stop of the race, I do believe. We'll see if I am correct on that once he starts leaving the pits. The Williams looking very fast, having closed a major gap on that Haas driver. Pixel into the pits now, Lucario into the pits. The Renault of Aleph back up into the podium positions now. He is currently running 3rd as Don Lucio takes a 3-second time penalty after multiple warnings. Newsor has already cut the gap he had going into 2nd position in half between him and the race leader. Silver Arrow might have to start sweating soon here, as that Williams definitely looking to take the race to him on the medium compound tires, I might add. Silver Arrow definitely going to feel some tire degradation on those soft compound tires entering through. He's currently been on them for 11 laps. We'll see if we get a pit out of him coming through this final turn, and we do. Silver Arrow jumping into the pits on the soft compound tire now. Newsor should move up into 2nd place or 1st place, and he does. Silver Arrow having now dropped back a position. We'll see if Aleph is able to capitalize on his undercut, coming out ahead of the Haas driver. As Silver Arrow now comfortably into 2nd position, coming out ahead of the Renault driver, the gap being only 5 seconds. And it's dropped back now to 3 seconds. However, Newsor on that medium compound tire so far, things are paying off for him, as he has currently only been on those tires for 12 laps. Silver Arrow now having just switched over to the medium compound tire. Newsor is now ahead 16.7 seconds on the Haas driver. Looking to maintain that lead, I'm sure, for the remainder of this campaign in Monaco. I do believe most of the drivers now have pitted. Newsor on the medium compound tire and Ozil in the Racing Point, the only 2 drivers that have yet to pit here. Ozil currently on the 11-lap-old soft compound. Jeb moving up into 9th ahead of that Racing Point. It looks like Ozil may not have been able to get back into the session, as his car is currently ghosted. Very unfortunate for the Racing Point. I'm sure he's not too impressed with Steam and Codemasters at the moment, costing him what could have been a spectacular race in Monaco. As Aleph comes across the line, setting the fastest lap of the race thus far with a 1:13.170. He's currently 2.7 on the rear of the former race leader Silver Arrow. Both drivers now on that medium compound tire, Aleph being 3-lap-old with Silver on the fresher compound. Olipop currently running 6th on the fresh mediums as he comes across for his first lap on those tires. Currently 26 seconds behind 5th position. He will look to, of course, decrease that gap over the next few laps. As all of the intervals have now been spaced out here, the only one to really be noting is, of course, Jeb in P8, very close to the rear of the AI-controlled Kaio car. Not too sure what happened to Kaio here, as that car automatically lets both Jeb and the back marker of Nusor by. Jeb now being lapped by our race leader, the current gap to leader in this race. Wow. We're currently looking at a very interesting time interval here, as Nusor has lapped positions 7 through 11 here in Monaco already. Very, very fast on those medium tires. Not too sure when we will see him pit. He is currently enjoying this race very much, it seems, on those medium tires. I'm going to estimate he pits around the 18 lap mark onto the hard compound. But I've been wrong before, and I could be wrong here, but we will have to have a look-see at that. As all of these drivers now, with the exception of Pixel, off to pretty spaced out lineups, as there's currently a pit stop from Kaio and Kroga as they exit the pits in 9th and 10th respectively. Kroga looking to make up some time on the racing point in front of him, of course. Only a second behind right now is the Ferrari of Kroga. Nusor absolutely flying currently in first position, as Silver Arrow is looking up to catch him. Pit going to be a huge factor here, as Silver Arrow only 13.8 seconds behind the Williams driver on the much fresher medium compound. Pixel taking a 3-second time penalty after multiple warnings now, as he looks to make a move on the Renault driver of a left. A little bit of a tap with the right hand there. Right hand barriers. Moving through into lap 18 now. He's very tight to the rear of that Renault. Moving up into turn 1. Kroga into the pits again now in that Ferrari. Looks like he might have had to get a wing repaired, because he did just pit a lap previous. Very, very interesting. A left taking a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. Kaio now into the pits in that racing point. Nusor 12 seconds ahead of Silver Arrow. Currently 17 laps old on those tires. He's coming in after 18 laps driven on those mediums. So it looks like I was correct, and he'll be pitting for fresh tires. We'll see if he's able to come out ahead of Silver Arrow here. And he's jumping onto softs. Very interesting pit strategy here from the Williams. I would have expected him to go onto the hards, but given the tire life that he had on those mediums, he might be able to stretch softs till the end here, as we are currently 20 laps from the end of the race. Very, very interesting pit strategy here from the Williams driver. He could, of course, always just be using those soft tires to create a gap between him and the first place runner. But it looks like he might be jumping onto a two-stop here, or it's due to the fact that we have a safety car. Not too sure why we have a safety car at the moment. All drivers currently still in the race. Doesn't look like we've got too much major damage. Kroga's car currently ghosted. Not too sure if something happened there with him causing the safety car to come out. If somebody is able to update me there in the chat, I'd greatly appreciate it, as I've unfortunately missed some of the action here in Monaco. Jeb opting to move on to the hard compound tire for the remainder of the race. Definitely explains why Nusor is taking advantage of the soft compound, as he is now going to get pushed back into the race leaders here. Or the race leader, I should say. He is, of course, one of the race leaders. We'll see if we get a pit stop out of the Renault driver of Aleph. It's definitely very possible here. Moving into Sector 3 now, we'll find out whether or not the safety car is coming in, and it looks like it will be staying out for lap 20. Hey, Sneaky. Welcome to the stream, my friend. Sorry, I just saw your message now. Hopefully you're still with us. Not trying to ignore you, of course. Moving on to lap 20 now is the safety car as we move up into turn 1. All of the drivers on the grid currently getting bunched up. Take a look at see who's currently lapped. Lapped drivers not required to catch the safety car queue, although a couple of them are in the mix. You can see Ozil there, I do believe, currently running behind our race leader. Or is that Kaio? That's Kaio currently running behind our race leader. Although he has been lapped, I do not believe the Williams driver is allowed to overtake him under the safety car conditions. But I'm sure we'll see some blue flags upon the restart of the race here. The Mercedes AMG Petronas safety car, of course, coming down now through into Sector 2 tunnel. Very happy to see all 11 cars still driving here in this race. Definitely can say I wasn't expecting that, but again, we are currently only halfway through this 50% Monaco campaign. As the safety car is about to cross into Sector 3 now, we will hear from race control, I'm sure, if it's going to be coming in. And it will be coming in this lap. So it looks like we're going to have some green racing here on lap 21. Silver Arrow doing a good job of backing up the grid now, so he's able to get a good jump once the safety car comes through into the pits. Waiting for flags to go green here in Monaco. And we are green here in Monaco on lap 21 after a 2-lap safety car. Nusor, of course, on that soft compound tire. Will it pay off for him to get a gap ahead of Silver Arrow? Could be that we see some very, very fantastic overtaking here. Look at the variation of stops here in this race so far. It is our 2 race leaders, Nusor and Silver Arrow, currently on the 1 stop. Could see another stop from Nusor, though, as I think Silver Arrow is looking to 1 stop here in Monaco. Pixel on 2 stops, running in 3rd. Aleph in 4th on the 1 stop. Lucario and Olipop both on 2 stops. Jeb on 2 stops, currently running in 7th. Kroga in 8th on the 3-stopper. Ozil has the 1 stop to his name, 9th in the Racing Point, as Kaio takes a 3-second time penalty after multiple warnings. Don Lucio on the 3-stopper, running currently at the back of the grid in the points. In 10th, as we see a retirement from Kaio here. He is a DNF. Not too sure what happened there. Looks like there's a crash in Sector 3. And we have a VSC coming down now in Monaco. As we have Nusor up into the lead now. It looks like we saw an overtake from him happen just a few seconds ago before the VSC. He will be happy about that, I'm sure. as these drivers now are required to slow down their race pace to their required deltas. Pixel in third, Lucario, Olipop, Aleph all taking advantage of the VSC here, choosing to pit. They will save a bit of time there jumping into the pits. We'll see what tires they jump onto now. It looks like Aleph going on to the fresh mediums. Olipop looks like he's staying on the mediums and was in for a wing change. I could be mistaken though, and it looks like Lucario in the same situation. So they're going to opt to stay out on their current tires. Back now to green flag racing here in Monaco. Nusor currently in the lead in that Williams on the soft compound tire. Silver Arrow behind him running in second. He, of course, Silver Arrow being our pole sitter for this race, is on the 9-lap-old medium compound. Pixel in the Mercedes 3-lap-old tires. He's going to look to decrease the gap between him and the second position driver of the Haas. Lucario 20 seconds behind the podium positions right now in that Red Bull on the 7-lap-old medium compound. Aleph at one point was up into the podium positions. He was, of course, the second place race starter. Started next to Silver Arrow there on the front of the grid. He's back into 5th now. Aleph looking to close the gap on that Red Bull of Lucario, of course. Being on the fresher tires, it shouldn't be too difficult, although getting by Lucario is going to be a completely different story as we see Olipop into the pits now for a stop and go or a wing change. It's a wing change here for the Toro Rosso driver. He's going to be looking to come out ahead of 7th, and it looks like he will, as the gaps right now between the 6th and 7th driver are very wide. Aleph now closing the gap on Lucario. Silver Arrow closing the gap on Nusor. Both our front runners, Nusor, Silver Arrow, and Pixel, all looking very fast here in Monaco. Aleph definitely going to be looking to rejoin the party soon, as he's definitely catching Lucario in that Red Bull. As I'm sure his tires are now up to temperature, he's definitely going to have a lot more traction than the Red Bull. Moving down through into lap 24 now. Into turn 1 now. He is currently half a second behind the Red Bull. Kroga, very tight to the rear of the 7th place McLaren of Jeb. Pixel, very tight now on the rear of Silver Arrow in that Mercedes as we come down on the chicane exit from the tunnel section. Moving up into Sector 3 now. Looks like he lost a little bit of time there, but Silver Arrow and Pixel definitely hungry for a podium finish here. Definitely looking for the race win as well, as we see a little bit of a slide out from the rear of the Haas in front of the Mercedes. He'll be looking to capitalize with some DRS here as they come down through the pit straight. Both the Haas driver and the Mercedes driver have that DRS to stick on to the race leader. They'll be looking to maintain that through the race to hopefully make a move later on. The Renault driver of Aleph now with the DRS moving down the pit straight into turn 1 on the rear of that Red Bull. We'll see what he's able to do through Sector 1 here, as he's very close to the rear of Lucario. Kroga looks like he could be making a move within the next couple of laps there on the McLaren of Jeb, based on the timings we have here in the commentary booth. Kaio, with that DNF earlier on in the race, has now officially left the session. Not the race he wanted to have, I'm sure, but with that DNF, that secures points for the remaining drivers here in Monaco, having started with only 11 drivers here for today's race. Most of the rest of the grid, I'm sure, having previous commitments, work, or other engagements, preventing them from being here for the race, as Nusor comes across the line with a 112.453 in the race lead on that soft compound tire. He will be looking to hold on to that fastest lap till the remainder of the race, I'm sure, as he wants that extra point for the standings. Citizen, welcome back to the stream, my friend. How are you doing today? Thank you very much for the follow. Currently in on some action for the ARL in Monaco. Fortunately, only 11 drivers starting today. Only one of them having retired only a few laps ago for this 50%er here. Ooh, a little bit of contact for the Renault driver on the rear of Lucario there. Not too sure if he's going to suffer any damage. It's very possible he lost an end plate. And he does. He loses his front left wing end plate. That's definitely going to slow down that Renault, as he was looking very, very fast on the rear of the Red Bull. Of course, the Red Bull driver in fourth, 22 seconds behind podium positions, as he takes a 3-second time penalty through the tunnel exit chicane, and a left following suit in the Renault, taking the exact same penalty at the exact same turn. Pixel still keeping a very close gap with that Haas driver in second ahead of him as we move up through sector 1 here, down in through the right turn. These guys about to jump into, of course, the teardrop hairpin, one of the most difficult sections of this circuit. Kroga into the pits now in that Ferrari, opting to switch over to the soft tires. We have now seen a very, very large amount of stops from him in the Ferrari. 4 stops, the amount of pits we've seen come out of that Ferrari. Not too sure what strategies he's on here. He could just be looking to have a comfortable race here, as he is safely into the points with that retirement of Kyle. We'll see if he wants to improve on 1 point. Maybe catch up with the racing point of Ozil. The intervals now starting to space themselves out as tire life and degradation starts to come into play here. Some drivers obviously being better on the older tires than others. This is where skill is going to start to play a role, especially here in Monaco, as these tires lose their grip. It's going to be very difficult for these drivers to maintain traction through certain turns. Could potentially see some wing damage for these guys, as Nusor currently in the lead still on the 9-lap-old soft compound tire. Silver Arrow, our pole sitter, currently behind him by just around 1.5 seconds in second. Pixel in third in that Mercedes. Lucario running fourth in the Red Bull. Aleph in fifth in that Renault. Of course, we saw him suffer a little bit of wing damage there. I'm sure he'll be hoping for a safety car to get some fresh tires and perhaps a wing change later on in the race, as we currently have 12 more laps to go. Jeb currently running 7th. Sorry if I missed Olipub in 6th there in that Toro. Jeb in 7th in the McLaren. Ozil in 8th in the Racing Point. Kroga 9th in the Ferrari. And Don Lucio into the pits now in that Alpha. Quite a few pit stops for him thus far. I think that might make it 5 pit stops for him. Oh, and there's a retirement coming out of the pits here in turn 1. And we're going to get a safety car for that, most definitely, as Don Lucio took out his front right suspension. Very unfortunate for the Alpha driver here. He will finish this race in 10th. As there's a safety car, we see the driver of Pixel into the pits there for a wing and tire change. He's going to jump out on the soft compound. Very unfortunate for the Alfa Romeo here coming out of the pits, as he's taken out his suspension. We'll see him drop from the session there. A couple of these drivers very, very happy about that safety car, I'm sure, as the gaps are now going to tighten once again. So far here on lap 29, we have seen 2 safety cars now and a VSC here in Monaco. If it was a larger grid, I'm sure we may have seen more. But definitely some intense battling going to be coming up ahead here, as we're going to definitely stay with our race leaders to see if they have a difference in strategy. Could be that Nusor and Silver Arrow decide to pit, as Silver Arrow currently running on 16-lap-old medium compound tires. Going to be very difficult for him to catch Nusor on those tires if Nusor decides to pit, so I'm sure he's going to pay very close attention to what the race leader is going to do here as the safety car comes round through into Sector 3 now. We'll hear from race control in just a moment here if that safety car has opted to come in this lap or not. Doesn't look like it will, so the safety car going to be out for lap 30 here. Will we see some pits from our race leaders as the drivers in 3rd and 4th, Lucario and Pixel, have opted to jump onto that soft compound tire? They'll be looking to go to the end of the race on those, I'm sure. Very, very interesting race here. Safety car affected, of course, as we see Pixel into the pits again now? Was that the second time into the pits? It's very possible he might have been put onto the wrong soft compound tires. He will still take 3rd race position here as he won't actually, as Lucario now up into 3rd after the pit stop of Pixel. Pixel going to be looking to make back up that podium position. Very, very interesting here as Lucario trying to catch the safety car queue. Currently 10 seconds behind. Shouldn't be too long now for that Red Bull driver to jump ahead behind Silver Arrow. Pixel currently in 4th now after he had to switch tires again. Not too sure if he took wing damage there coming out of the pits last time round, but if he did, obviously the safety car being the most optimal time for him to jump into the pits and get things switched over for the remaining 10 laps here in Monaco. Kroga in the Ferrari back in 9th. We saw him make 5 stops this race, with Olipub on the Toro Rosso currently in 6th, also having opted for 5 stops here in this race. Unfortunately, those drivers more than likely suffering wing damage here throughout the race. As we see Newsor now on board with him as he comes round behind that safety car in Sector 3. I don't know if the safety car will be coming in this lap. Could be waiting for everybody to catch up into the queue. Of course, a couple of drivers have been lapped here. Jeb, Ozil, and Kroga, all having been lapped here in the race thus far. They will not be required to rejoin the safety car queue, although I do believe they are in the middle of it. As we can see, a Racing Point and McLaren drivers there, very close to our race leaders, looking to perhaps unlap themselves at some point here in this race. Albeit, it is Monaco, and that will be a very, very difficult task. Safety car still with us here on lap 31 in Monaco. See a pit there from the Renault driver of Aleph. We'll see what tires he chooses to go on. It looks like the soft compound for him. Keep in mind, Aleph in that Renault did start 2nd position here for the race, back into 5th now. We saw some very, very intense racing earlier on between him, Pixel, and Newsor while they were following the race leader of Silver Arrow at that time. But as we move into the last phase of our race here with the safety car, hopefully this being the last safety car of the race, we'll find out in just a few moments whether or not it will be in here at the end of lap 31. But these drivers having to keep their tires warm without seeing too much degradation while following that safety car as we come out of the tunnel here. It has been a very, very interesting race so far. Of course, 2 DNFs, one for Don Lucio, one for Okayo in the Racing Point. They will, Okayo in 11th, unfortunately, unable to finish in the points. Don Lucio is going to get 1 point for having DNF'd in the 10th grid position. Like I mentioned previously on stream, attendance wasn't too great for today, only starting the grid with half of the drivers present, 11 out of 20. Definitely a dip in attendance from the last round last week in Spain. As the safety car has come in here, we are back off to green flag racing. Into turn 1, it is Newsor, Silver Arrow, and Pixel as we see some contact there from the Mercedes driver. It looks like he has lost some of his wing on the front right there. I could be mistaken though, and he DNFs out of this race. Not too sure what he was thinking there in that Mercedes, but there is most definitely going to be a yellow flag through Sector 1. We'll see if the safety car pops back out due to that. Very, very possible for that the safety car to come back out here. Not too sure what he was thinking there, as he had an issue on the front end there, and he will drop back into 9th position here in this race with the lap 32 crash for the Mercedes. Yeah, Sneaky, I saw you logging in there and it threw me off completely. Newsor off in race lead, still in first with that Williams. Silver Arrow looking to catch him on the 19-lap-old medium compound tires. I will be very impressed with Silver Arrow if he's able to stretch those tires to the end. Could be possible he missed a very, very important window to get on some fresher tires with that safety car. As Lucario catching him at quite a decent rate here in that Red Bull on the 4-lap-old soft compound tires. The race leaders on the very, very old tires compared to our 3, 4, and 5 drivers. Jeb now up into 6th as he passes Pixel through Sector 1 there. Pixel now dropping back into 9th as Jeb, Kroga, and Ozil in the Racing Point all move up a position. Ozil, something to note on the 18-lap-old medium tires. I do believe, though, he was unable to join us for this race, and his car has quite possibly been AI controlled for the entirety of this Monaco Grand Prix. Newsor looking to finish the race, it seems, on those soft compounds. He showed some very, very solid tire management earlier on the medium compound tires that he started on, stretching them out to 18 laps. We'll see if he's able to do the same with that soft tire. Again, as tire degradation comes into play for these drivers, things get more difficult. They may have to shift down an extra gear. They may have to brake earlier into certain turns. DRS now enabled after the restart. Definitely going to make a difference here for these drivers. Aleph into 3rd now as Lucario has pitted for a new wing and fresher soft compound tires. He's not going to be happy about that, as he looks like he took some damage on that front wing there. Looking to secure a place as Kroga now in the Ferrari is into the pits for the 6th time. He's going to come out just ahead of the Red Bull of Lucario. Lucario, however, has already lapped the Ferrari driver, so some blue flags going to come into play here, I'm sure. And we can see the blue flag monitor up there as the Ferrari driver is going to have to let that Red Bull pass at some point in the next couple of turns. Aleph back into 3rd, having started 2nd here at the race start. He's going to be looking to take back his starting grid position, I'm sure, as these drivers are all very tight, and we're in for a very fun time here for the last few laps in Monaco. Newsor, Silver, and Aleph all running within 1 second of one another right now, coming through into lap 35. As we move up through into turn 1 now. The Renault of Aleph very, very tight on the rear of Silver Arrow. Take a look at the tires once again. As you can see, Aleph looks like he could be on for a race win here with the freshest of the tires for these 3 drivers. Not too many other tight grids to speak of, so we're just going to stay on with these guys as Lucario has crashed in that Red Bull in Sector 3. We'll see if we get another safety car here in Monaco, as we have already had 2 full safety cars and a VSC here. We're on lap 35. I'm sure the race leader's hoping that we won't see a safety car. Doesn't look like we will, as that yellow in Sector 3 will disappear along with the Red Bull driver. Lucario leaving the session. I do believe I saw a very quick host migration there. Not too sure if that's going to cause any host lag or driving lag for any of these front runners. As we come through that very tight 90-degree right-hand turn. Moving on to lap 36 now. It is still a 1-2-3 for Newsor, Silver, and Aleph. Jeb now up into P5 on the 16-lap-old hard compound tire, I might add. Olipop into 4th in that Toro Rosso. A lot of these drivers going to be scoring points today that I'm sure they'll all be happy with. Of course, as I'm sure most of you can imagine, we would have had a far more action-packed grid here if we had a full grid. But this race has been quite exciting to watch nonetheless as we move into the teardrop hairpin. Silver now up into the lead, overtaking Newsor. Newsor on the 17-lap-old soft compound tires. Silver now back into the race lead, retaking the pole position that he started this race with Aleph into his rightful grid position in 2nd, Newsor in 3rd. Couple things to note there for Newsor is he started in 3rd, Aleph started in 2nd, and Silver Arrow started in 1st. just one of the things to highlight here in Monaco, as all of those drivers are currently sitting in their qualifying positions. Just showing you how important qualifying can be here in Monaco. Ollie Pub moving up 1 position from where he started in 5th. Jeb up 3 positions. He'll be happy with that, I'm sure. Kroga up 3 positions in the Ferrari, and Ozil remains in his qualifying position in 7th, as we see Kroga take a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. Very exciting last couple of laps here, as Nusor has definitely dropped off the pace of the 2 race leaders right now on those soft compound tires. It is also very possible that he took some damage as a result of the tire degradation, as we will see him come around now. It does look like his wing is intact coming through the teardrop hairpin, but we'll see as he comes out of it, coming down through into sector 2 now, if he suffered any damage. It doesn't look like he did. It just could be that his tires have dropped off quite enough to push him back 3.5 seconds of second position. However, the Renault driver of LF looking to take it to the Haas driver of Silver Arrow here in the final 3 laps of the race. Coming through sector 3 now. These 2 drivers looking very, very quick. Of course, something to keep in mind as we move here into the third last lap of the race, or sorry, the second last lap of the race, the tire wear for these drivers. Silver Arrow is currently running on 25-lap-old mediums. He could definitely run the risk of a puncture at this point in the race. A little bit of a touch there for the Renault with the wall, it sounded like. Let's see if he's got any wing damage coming through here into the teardrop hairpin. Going to be very, very difficult to keep the Renault at bay here, but again, it is Monaco, one of the most difficult overtaking circuits on the calendar. It is very possible that he's able to keep that Renault at bay until the race finish here, but the Renault obviously on the much quicker tires at the moment. 25-lap-old mediums versus 7-lap-old softs. Driver skill really going to come into play here for that Haas, as he's going to have to brake earlier, shift down extra gears through certain turns here to try and maintain the proper braking zones. Olipop into 4th now, as Nusor is still back in 3rd. He's dropped back 6 seconds of second position here. Olipop looking to overtake him with the 11-lap-old softs here, coming down through the pit straight now. Will we see a move from the Toro Rosso coming into turn 1? Ooh, looks like there might have been a little bit of a tap there. Oh, some damage. Did he tap that? Oh, he does not have much of his end plates left on that. He's missing his front right end plate on the Toro Rosso. Definitely going to slow him down a little bit. But of course, tire wear going to come into play for those 2 drivers. As the left still on the rear of our race leader here on the final lap of the race. Coming down through into sector 2 tunnel now. If it's going to happen, folks, this is where it's going to be. Very hard to overtake anywhere else, really, on Monaco. Very possible that they could pull something off in Sector 3. But Silver Arrow currently a second ahead of the second position driver. Now, another thing to note in this race. Many of these drivers have taken penalties. Although there have been safety cars, some of those penalties may have been served in the pits already, but as we come across the line here, it's looking like Silver Arrow is going to win the Monaco Grand Prix here in the ARL Round 7, and he does come across the line first. Silver Arrow running first on the 27-lap-old medium compound tires. Aleph had a massive amount of time penalties there, as we see him drop back a couple of places. Nusor in the Williams takes home second position here in Monaco. Olipop in the Toro Rosso with a spectacular drive. Keep in mind, he made 5 stops in this race. He comes home 3rd. Aleph in the Renault drops back into 4th, although he did cross the line 2nd here. Jeb looking to cross the line, and he does cross the line in 5th. Very nice from him. What an interesting race here in Monaco. Jeb has got to be happy with that in the McLaren. 5th position finish for him. As there are our podium finishers, you see Silver Arrow, the Haas driver, the Williams in 2nd, and the Toro Rosso driver in 3rd, as we see the trophy get lifted here in Monaco. there are the cars. So moving on now, we're going to take a look at how things lined up at the end of the race. Take a look at some of the grid positions. Silver Arrow on pole takes the race win, of course, in the Haas. New Source starting in third, jumps up a position into second. Olipub from fifth to third is on the podium in that Toro Rosso. Aleph finishing fourth in the Renault. Very unfortunate for him. He's dropped back 2 places from where he started. Jeb up 3 positions in the McLaren. He'll finish fifth. Kroga up 3 positions in that Ferrari. Ozil in 7th in the Racing Point. Lucario, he started 6th. He drops back a couple of positions. He finishes 8th with the DNF. Pixel with the DNF will finish 9th. Don Lucio in 10th and Oikayo in 11th in that Racing Point. What a interesting drive